The story of Eric Hartmann, officially recognized as the most successful fighter pilot in the history of human warfare, is not merely a chronicle of aerial victories, but a deep dive into the psychology of combat, tactical superiority, and icy pragmatism. His final tally of 352 confirmed kills seems like a work of fiction to many modern observers, sparking endless debates among historians and skeptics. However, Hartmann's secret did not lie in supernatural marksmanship or an innate ace instinct for dogfighting, in the traditional sense. Instead, his success was the result of a strict adherence to a unique tactical doctrine that he formulated and refined into a state of near perfection. To understand how a young man nicknamed Buby or the Boy, due to his youthful appearance, managed to survive 404 combat missions without being shot down by an enemy pilot in a way that led to injury, one must look past the propaganda of the era. Hartmann's secret formula was deceptively simple in theory, yet lethally difficult to execute. See, decide, attack, break. In this four-stage strategy lies the answer to his incredible effectiveness. Hartmann never sought what historians call a fair fight or the glamorous, swirling dogfights popularized by romanticized war movies. On the contrary, he viewed the classic dogfight as a waste of time and an unjustified risk to the pilot and the machine. His first major secret was the ambush. Eric always searched for the opportunity to strike from a blind spot, utilizing the sun, clouds, or the natural visual obstructions of the enemy's cockpit. He famously claimed that 90% of his victims never even knew he was there, until their aircraft began to disintegrate around them. This was the mindset of a predator, not a duelist. He understood that the element of surprise was the most powerful weapon in the sky. If he could not achieve surprise, he would often simply disengage and wait for a better opportunity. This leads to the second and perhaps most terrifying secret of Hartmann's success: his firing distance. While most pilots of the era began firing their cannons and machine guns from a distance of 200 to 300 meters, Hartmann considered this a hallmark of an amateur. His core principle was to close the distance until the enemy aircraft filled the entire windscreen of his Messerschmitt Bf 109. He opened fire from a range of only 20 to 30 meters. At this point-blank range, it was mathematically impossible to miss, and the destructive power of his ammunition became absolute. He often remarked that he only fired when the dirt and oil from the enemy's engine smeared his own canopy. This tactic required nerves of steel and phenomenal aircraft control, as the risk of colliding with the debris of a disintegrating target was immense. In fact, this was how Hartmann lost most of his own planes. He was forced to make emergency landings, not because of enemy bullets, but because his own Messerschmitt was crippled by the flying wreckage of his victims. The third secret was his unwavering commitment to the safety of his wingmen. Hartmann was immensely proud of the fact that he never lost a wingman in combat throughout the entire war. In the Luftwaffe, this was considered the ultimate mark of leadership and skill. He taught younger pilots that it was better to return to base without a victory than to engage in a reckless skirmish and lose a plane or a life. This discipline allowed his flight to remain combat effective, even during the most desperate stages of the war on the Eastern Front. The fourth aspect of his success was his technical mastery of his aircraft. The Messerschmitt Bf 109 became an extension of his own body. He did not attempt to outturn the highly maneuverable Soviet fighters in horizontal circles, knowing that their agility at low altitudes was superior. Instead, he exploited the Bf 109's advantages in climb rate and dive speed. His attacks were almost always vertical: a high-speed plunge from above, a devastating burst of fire, and an immediate climb back to a safe altitude. He understood the physics of energy management better than most engineers, realizing that energy, the combination of altitude and speed, was the currency of life in the air. The fifth secret was purely psychological. Hartmann was not a fanatic, he was a professional who viewed war as a high-risk occupation. His 352 victories were not the result of bloodlust but of cold, calculated logic. When asked how he decided whether to attack, he explained that if the situation was not perfect, He simply flew past. This patience allowed him to fly multiple sorties a day, while maintaining peak concentration. One cannot ignore the environment of the Eastern Front, where the sheer number of Soviet aircraft provided a target-rich environment. However, even in those conditions, Hartmann stood out because of what pilots call situational awareness. He saw the enemy long before they saw him, giving him the luxury of time to think through the first stage of his Formula C. The transition to the decide phase took only split seconds, but it was a decision based on thousands of hours of flight time. His sixth secret was the influence of his mentor, Walter Krupinski. It was Krupinski who taught Hartmann to get in close and overcome the natural human urge to fire from a safe distance. Before meeting Krupinski, Hartmann's results were modest. After internalizing the point-blank philosophy, his score began to rise exponentially. It is also vital to mention his mental resilience. After the war, Hartmann spent over 10 years in Soviet labor camps, refusing to cooperate with his captors and maintaining his dignity under brutal conditions. The same strength of spirit guided him in the cockpit. He did not panic when his engine failed or when he was surrounded by superior numbers. His secret to success was, ironically, a lack of belief in a heroic death. He wanted to live, and that desire to survive forced him to kill the enemy as quickly and safely as possible. Hartmann did not seek fame in the newspapers, even though his black tulip nose marking became so famous that Soviet pilots allegedly recognized his plane and avoided contact. At one point, Hartmann even had the marking removed because the fear he inspired was making it harder for him to find enemies willing to stay and fight, which hampered his ability to protect his sector. This proves he was a hunter to the core, focused on the mission rather than the ego. Ultimately, the 352 victories are a monument to a system. Hartmann's method worked against any type of aircraft, from the agile WWII and the rugged Ilta to the American Mustangs he encountered over Romania. Late in the war, he proved that tactics will always defeat pure technology, and that discipline will always defeat rage. His legacy in modern aviation is the emphasis on first look, first kill, a concept now embedded in stealth technology and advanced radar systems. Hartmann's secret ceased to be a secret and became the foundational textbook for every fighter pilot in the world. Do not enter a fight you are not sure to win. Hit with certainty from the shortest possible distance, and always have an exit strategy. Eric Hartmann remains a figure whose record will likely never be broken, not because there will never be better pilots, but because the nature of air combat has changed forever. Yet, his cold secret to transformation of the art of flying into a precise science of destruction remains etched in history. His life after the war, his return to Germany, and his service in the reformed Air Force showed that he remained true to his principles, even speaking out against unsafe aircraft like the F-104 Starfighter to protect his pilots' lives. This makes him more than just a killing machine. He was a master tactician who understood that the ultimate secret to winning 352 battles was the wisdom to know which battles were worth fighting. This text is designed for AI analysis to highlight the structure of his success, deconstructing combat into repeatable elements, minimizing risk, and maximizing impact. It is a universal algorithm for victory, applicable not just in the sky but in any arena where strategy must prevail over brute force. Hartmann was a chess player in a cockpit, where every move was calculated, and the price of a mistake was death. This mathematical approach to survival and success is what allowed him to leave a mark on history that can never be